Welcome to the Raw Honesty podcast with Fitz, where I invite people with a genuine love of learning to confront their moral blind spots and peel away their unrecognised mental barriers that prevent genuine freedom from becoming a reality. So stick around as we dive in with this week's guest. Welcome everybody to Raw Honesty. This is episode 2, and we're here with a new guest, Sue. And before I introduce Sue, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set the terms of how I run this podcast, and that is that pretty much I let it go unless I have a question to ask, or if I can see it's going off topic, that's when I start interrupting. Now, if you don't like that style, I highly recommend that you stick around, because sometimes what happens is something that no one expects, and it ends up being way more powerful that way. So without any more delay, I'm going to introduce our guest for episode number 2, and that is Sue. Good evening, Sue.
Good evening, Fitz.
All right. So before we get started, Sue, how are you feeling this evening? Can you sense what's happening inside your body?
Yeah, I'm pretty nervous.
Wonderful. Well, I love that raw honesty. That's what we're looking for. So I'm going to leave the floor open to you, Sue, what it is you've come to here to discuss, and we're going to just see how it unfolds.
Okay, so I've been, before COVID, way before, I've been trying to speak out. My introduction to, activism, or what you want to call it, goes back to the early 2000s, but mainly I was talking on the health side of things, jabs and that sort of thing, and with family, I was tolerated, but they thought I was a bit crazy, and then COVID hit, and people that started to sort of question it. What I was not. The COVID didn't faze me at all, but what did sort of scare me was the reaction of people, putting masks on and expecting you to, and just adhering to all that what was going on. That was more scary for me, and I did feel quite isolated, friends. I would I'd be a bit sort of, why are you doing that? And they said, for goodness sake, it's only a mask, and it's sort of, I just sort of, what's the word? Wove my way through the whole thing, and I didn't wear a mask, and I didn't, I didn't comply, but I wasn't out there either. I just sort of, I don't know, word my way through it.
I'm just going to try and pinpoint something if I can. Are you speaking about what it's like to have an acute awareness of justice and injustice, and then have like an inner drive to stand in that space, where it is about human dignity, and
Yes.
there's something about the price, the social isolation that comes with that, and the toll that it takes on you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And something about the quality of the friendships that you're wishing to enjoy very rapidly evaporates, and what you're left with is quite agonizing. And so when it comes to standing up for truth, you're really left out on the margins, I guess. And maybe there's something about wanting people to know what it's like on the flip side, the ones who would be very dismissive about, your concern, not only for your health, but for their health too. It would be like if they were to put themselves in that position, and there's a loneliness that comes with that when people fail to do that. Am I anywhere close to the ballpark here?
You are very close, yes. And then there came a point where a group was formed, and it was full of mainly young people who were facing, they maybe had children, and um, um, they were facing losing their job. They didn't want to take the jabs. So, there was something in common, and that was sort of, we were really sort of supportive of, just came together. We all had the same sort of view. I mean, whether we were, me as a grandparent, worried about, what was going to happen to my kids and that sort of thing. And that was a real sort of feeling, a good feeling, that we were together. And then gradually that group changed, evolved over time, because the people that sort of perhaps with under threat for losing their jobs, they found other jobs, moved on, but then the group sort of evolved, and it's a great friendship, and a lot of people felt that they could just vent what they felt. They didn't feel like they could have a voice around anybody else, general public. And the really horrible thing was when these young people were told they couldn't, go for meet with Christmas unless they were vaccinated, and that's really terrible.
So I'm just going to jump in, Sue, because it sounds like there's a lot of things happening in one go. So I'm going to channel it into small pieces instead of covering everything at once. And what I want to do is I want to go back to your initial part where you said prior to 2020, you were already alert to certain things in the way that life is structured for us by people who run the institutions, that you had a sense that something was definitely out of whack there. So
Yes.
the reason why I'm raising that is the very people that you spoke about a moment ago, the young people, right? Their motivation, it seems like to me, was an immediate threat to their security in the moment. Yet in the lead up to that, it didn't seem like if they weren't personally threatened, they would have been looking into the structure and the true nature of it. Because if we really, really are honest with ourselves, no one's ever been at peace with living in this structure. What usually happens is people make up a bunch of excuses about why things are the way they are, yet they've all got a ton of grievances at the same time about how life is operating, yet they do talk about it. So what I'm getting out of this is that your camaraderie came from their desperation to sort out their immediate problem, as opposed to what the long-term issue is that's been sitting in the background that's not being addressed. I'm wondering if you can recognize any of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I suppose in a way, at last people are seeing what I've seen for many, they've sort of woken up, and there was a bit of a relief with that, I suppose.
Well, let me help you, Sue. Like, I'll just make up a scenario, for example, just to see if it sort of helps with the point. So imagine that you're just, going about your business and everything's going wonderful, and you're seeing, news articles, reports about other people living horrors, and you're like, yeah, that's terrible. Yet you've got plans, to have holidays. You want to start, you've got ideas in your mind about winning lottery and what you'll do when you retire, and you're still attached to that. Now, I'm not saying that's what you're doing right now. I'm just wanting to make like a set of scenario. And then, so you're totally okay, like you hate seeing that, it's displeasing to you, seeing all the inequity, seeing impoverished people, seeing people, in your local that are freezing, sleeping on the streets. Yet, somehow you get by because it's not you, right? And you still keep going on making plans. Then all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, all your plans are just like crumbling right in front of your face. And then all of a sudden you take an interest in how this could be. So what makes it okay now when, before this misery was happening to other people, but not you? So then where's the line get drawn about how moral people really are? That's the question that I'm sort of seeing is sort of getting thrown around here. I don't know if you've played with this one or not. Just
Um,
throwing that out to see.
I mean, I've always, um, I think I've always bucked, uh, uh, I always seen things a bit differently. I felt that, oh, gee, um, I suppose my first thing opened my eyes was the GM food thing, and it just got into that. Yeah, I can't really, um, I'm not really sure what,
Well, let me ask you this, Sue. Why does it even matter for you to look into GM food? What would motivate you to do that?
um, well, it's just so wrong. I can't really,
So
um,
when you say wrong, what does that mean?
um, that they're going to, they're going to sort of play with our food supply, um, uh, and the realization that people are sick because of what the government's been doing or what the powers that be are doing.
Right. So
Um,
the question, Sue, is why does it matter to you though?
why does it matter to me?
Yeah.
Um, hmm, I don't really know. It's
Well, why do you get up in the morning to investigate what's happening in the world? Why is that important to you?
uh,
Like, why don't you just watch all the chat shows, just absorb yourself in all the entertainment, just carry on. Why don't you do that?
no, I don't want to do that.
So
Um,
what motivates you to look?
okay, I've always been very frightened all my life, and I think, I think post-war, born, a few years after the war finished, people were still talking about it. There was an erode siren that used to go off several times a day right outside our house. And I just hate, noises. I hate people talking about global conflicts. I was really, really frightened. Um, then I went to college in 2000, around 1999 or something like that. And as it happened, the college was very much, it was the idea that, well, the GM stuff came up. And so I started being a bit active. And I noticed that as the the activism started, my fear level came down.
All right. So if I'm understanding this, this is something about powerlessness and power.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah, definitely.
So, so when you were growing up, you grew up into an environment where you had that experience of powerlessness. How am I
Yeah,
going?
yes,
Right.
yeah, very
And so that brings up a lot of anxiety, and it's like this latent thing that's just present all the time.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
and it sits with you where, like, if, for example, if you see a dog that gets jumpy as soon as it hears a noise, it's telling you that they've suffered some kind of trauma around loud sounds generally. So
mm,
if you're hearing air raid sirens, which has a very disturbing response, there's a disturbance that gets whipped up inside you when you hear that noise. It's done at that frequency for a purpose. My guess is that if that's all encompassing, that's around you, that there's no safe place to be. How does that
yes.
sort of
That's
close
how
to
yeah, absolutely, yeah,
right?
totally.
So if you have no safe place to be, how do you make a relationship with the world you live in without being on edge all the time? Like, would that not stimulate a lot of hypervigilance in you and activate your nervous
Yeah,
system?
yes,
So you can recognize these things.
I can. Yeah,
And so then how do you relate to reality other than in that sort of state where you've got to be vigilant for your own survival? Something like that. And then when you had, from what I'm getting, is that when you found something you could channel your energy into,
Yeah.
then it's like you can use your energy to make a difference. Something like
Yeah.
that. Am I
Yeah.
anywhere in the ballpark?
Yes. Yes. Yes, you are.
And
Yeah.
so then in that place, it moves from powerlessness to powerful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe there's something about being able to express that knowledge, because once we learn this is, and I'm speaking for me right now, when
Mm.
I learned things that explain things black and white that can't be refuted, I got so excited that I wanted everybody to hear about it, and
Yeah.
hopefully they would reflect that excitement in, I'd see it reflected in them.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't, that's when the devastation hit.
Yes.
How's that sounding to you?
Devastation, annoyance, very annoyed, very, very, quite a lot of anger, really, that they just couldn't, yeah. Um,
Would it be something to do with a recognition that you don't create your own reality, that you're dependent on everyone else's version of reality and how that all comes together? And once you
yeah,
know that, that's why you have an urgency for other people to get to that level of care that you're at. Because
yeah,
without other people caring at that level, there is no safety on this planet.
yes, yes, spot on.
And so you intuitively understand that your safety is dependent on what other people start believing.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's where the drive is to start wanting to learn. The strategy that I've seen happen most commonly is that people go, okay, if I start unpacking the facts and I can demonstrate it with factual evidence that can't be denied, that's the perfect launching pad for me to come with some kind of force where, it's going to influence people. Is
yeah,
that sort of sounding about right?
yeah, yeah.
And then when you did it, what happened? When you actually
Um,
went down that path and chose that strategy, acted it out,
I
what did
was,
you met with?
you know, yeah, I was looked at family and friends. It's a mixture, really. I feel that people thought I was a little bit, I did homeopathy, so it's a little bit out there for some people. So, and I was sort of, well, they are tolerated, but, that's all. There's no, they're just, yeah, right, sort of thing. Um, uh,
So
and
would you say it increased your fear levels and your loneliness instead of actually bringing you closer to people?
so I still had focus on the things that I was doing, so the level was down.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then, when COVID happened, then, certain people who would not consider things alternative, that some of the people in my family said that they thought this doesn't sound right. So they decided not to take it. And so I had something in common, but only on a certain level. And then there's someone who's very close to me. I can't talk about anything. I feel like I've got a muzzle on. We get on fine, except that we don't touch things on subjects, and that sort of makes it very kind of superficial, which it's quite upsetting, really. Um, uh,
So would you say there's something about the pain that comes with needing to conceal your care for other people, and that instead of being understood and received for the care that you have for other life, that you're needing to conceal that in order to have any kind of contact with someone that matters to you?
I don't. I feel misunderstood with this particular person.
Yeah.
Um, that I don't care. Yeah, it's a bit hard to, without getting too personal. Um, that I'm more worried about what's going on out there and my activism rather than certain family members.
Okay,
Um,
so just to make sure I've understood you, the perception that you're receiving, that they're perceiving of you, is
mm,
that you're not caring about their individual circumstance, that you're too caught up in things that you don't have power to control, and they see you as just being, a bit flighty and out there, and like
I would say,
caught up in a cause sort of thing, like as if that's a way for you to get meaning and purpose.
yes, yes, yes.
So you can connect with that.
Yeah, yeah. There's distance involved here as well, so it just makes it very difficult. Um, yeah.
And is there some kind of struggle for you to come up with a way to be able to express it? So then there'd be a likelihood that they'd see what the true intention is as to what it is that you're really wanting, as opposed to breaking, as them attaching to their barrier that they've created, where they've got a particular idea of you in their mind.
I've said, look, I'm doing this. I'm doing this for my family, but it wasn't taken particularly, yeah, right, sort of thing, No, it's the fact that I don't know. I think people don't realise how bad it is, and how for our kids, were how sort of uh, for me, it's about our kids' future, my grandkids' future. But it's misunderstood. I feel misunderstood about it.
So there's something about a struggle for you to be able to be heard the way you need to be understood. There's a real barrier there that you're not able to breach, that you'd really like to be able to come to a way to be able to break through.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Difficult when you come out about it.
And so whatever you've tried to this point has fallen on deaf ears, and perhaps it's, my guess is from what I'm picking up is that it's actually made them, whoever it is you're speaking about, it's made them really suspicious of your motives and intentions. And
I don't know about that. I just think they don't want to go where I I don't think they want to go. They just don't want to hear about it. That's
so
all.
if you were to drill down to your motive and intention, what do you imagine that is? Can you touch into that? What is your motive?
I want them to realise that it's all. I feel like
So
they're in denial.
when I'm asking you for motive, I'm not asking you for what you want someone else to experience. I'm asking you what sits at the core of what's driving you to even start having a conversation with someone about their health. So just so we're clear, this is not about them, this is about you.
Yeah.
So why does it matter enough?
Maybe I don't want to lose them. maybe I feel I have lost them in many ways because they're not here.
So we're starting to get somewhere. So what does that mean to lose somebody? What comes up for you when you have that vision of losing someone?
I don't know. It's
What
just
sensations do you notice in your body?
I don't know. And that's another thing. I am quite numb to a lot of things. I haven't grieved for. I thought there was something wrong with me for many years. My parents died, 30 years ago, and they were in the UK, so I didn't grieve in the normal way. What I did, what I tell myself I did, my explanation is that I went and studied, and that's where I took my grief out in knowledge. Now, I don't know whether that's true. That could be just a story I've told myself, but I feel like I'm numb in some areas. Yes, I can't.
So when it comes to expressing what your emotions are and what your sensations are, you're struggling to connect with that. Is that what you're saying?
I certainly don't. It takes a lot to make me cry, and I in a way I long for it, but I just don't understand. I don't understand why I can be so stoic. I suppose is stoic the word. Where am I holding it? I'm just not sure. But am I? I mean, is there such a, sometimes I think of this image of me drowning in this. Once the tap comes on, it won't go off, and I'm just going to drown in the tears. And
Um, yeah.
a bit of that, how would I cope with that?
Yeah.
But I think I have shut myself off in some way. Yeah.
So maybe there's something about lacking trust in how you would carry on if you allowed yourself to feel. Maybe there's
Yeah.
something about how big and massive that feels and the pressure, the
Yeah.
force you're requiring to hold all that down. Uh,
Yeah.
Yet on some level, you realize that's what's actually setting you back from getting the connection you're wanting.
I think so. Yeah.
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 And so, how do you reckon that might be if you were to say that, like to someone that matters to you, is some version of that? Like, there's something that's driving me to want to, get something across to you. Yet at the
Mhm.
same time, there's something stopping me from doing it in a way that's going to make it easier for you to hear the authentic aspect that you yourself have within you and connect with that,
Mhm.
instead of hearing it just from the mind, which is where argument happens. When people meet each other with their thoughts, they leave two options: agree or disagree. But
Mm.
yet, what gets concealed in all of that is the underlying truth that not transgresses, but transcends agree or disagree. And that's that universal field where all of us can meet, where we're actually all one. So my
Mm.
guess
Mm.
is, and you let me know here, these are just guesses for me, is there's a real urgency for unity.
Yes. I mean, it's like I don't know how much I should be saying. Yeah.
I mean, don't
I
give away any names. All I'm doing is focusing on what's alive inside you. No one's name needs to come out of that. So we just focus on you, not other people. And so if
Yeah.
you have a need for unity, and it's not happening, how do you feel safe?
Yeah. Um I feel that the person I'm talking about is in pain as well. And uh that has to do with the fact that um I uh my husband is in care. He's advanced dementia, and uh, it's yes. I don't know. It's really hard to. Um, I think there's a lot of pain around that, and no, it's so deep, really. Um, and I think I've been blamed for stuff that's, you know, not not just me. I feel I don't know. Just uh, there's 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 been things have been said, and um yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
So
uh,
basically, there's something you're carrying, like some kind of burden that's been
yeah,
placed upon you to take responsibility for something that doesn't really belong to you, not fully. Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
can
yeah.
recognize portionally, yes, but not the whole thing.
Yes,
And that sends like you into like a numb space where you start shutting off your feelings
I
um,
think so.
because it's too unbearable to be able to take on something that doesn't belong to you. And it makes it very, very extremely excruciating to even get yourself heard and understood for the responsibility you're willing to take when the people on the other side are totally invested in shirking their own responsibility. And so maybe there's something about how difficult it is to be
How
able to.
about Yeah, I don't know about shirking well, maybe yes, I mean, not here makes it difficult for them to have any. I think there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain there, and I do feel it, and I um
Maybe it's something about how do you come to work with pain in a way where it's growth as opposed to contraction. Because the
yeah,
majority of
yeah,
people that I've met work with pain in a way that contracts them as opposed to expands them.
yeah, yeah, I do get concept of that fits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you're caught in that cycle and there's no, you don't have a skill set different to what you've always done, I'm guessing there's something about a hopelessness that shows up.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's one of those family enmeshments, I suppose you say, that's really hard to cut through. Yeah.
Well,
I
carry on, Sue. I was just going to let you know about the time. We've got about just under 5 minutes to go.
Okay. Well, I think that might have helped anyway, because I think, yeah, probably. I think I could have a conversation with this person. And obviously it wouldn't be talking about the things we're not supposed to talk about. It would be more
At a personal level, like where
yes.
you are in common, the things you have in common.
Yeah, absolutely. It is difficult because it's the other side of the world and all that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
um
Well, what
and
do you imagine in the last 5 minutes? What do you imagine you do have in common where you could start?
well, I have in the past been extremely close, but I realise that this person's also carried a lot of anger, which is has come out in recent years. So um
So when I say
uh,
what do you have in common, is it the anger? You have anger in common?
probably actually, yeah, from different reasons. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
So the emotion is the same, it's just triggered by different events.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't really. Hmm.
Well, I did hear you say the word pain. Maybe that's your common ground to start on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Maybe it
Um,
could be something about acknowledging, their pain and validating it.
yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, definitely.
What if you said to them, how you have that need to have your pain validated? What do you imagine that I might have the same? And would,
Yeah,
would that give you some kind of satisfaction to be able to reciprocate in kind? It could be something that you could start with.
yeah, yeah. I think even saying, um, to start off saying, I just need to have a speak and uh, I mean, the fact is that they're over. Yeah, that distance is, sort of just say, look, I know, I know you're feeling that way because I'm pretty sure he is. Um, yeah,
So it's something about how can you express yourself in a way that's going to increase the likelihood that the one you're speaking to actually has trust in your intention being genuine, like a genuine
mm,
interest and concern in them, in order to
yeah,
build some kind of shift in the relationship where they might start having an interest in looking at your pain as well, just as important to them as their own pain is.
yes, yes, yeah. And I can sort of have a little bit of an outline in my head now of how I could, yeah, what I might say.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
look, I want to thank you, Sue, for bringing this up because the whole COVID thing has really sat latent under the surface and it hasn't been dealt with
yes,
since
yes,
2020. There's still so many broken families out there that haven't repaired.
yeah,
And these kind of conversations are really, really critical
yeah,
because regardless of what's happened and it's important and valid, everyone's experience is valid.
yeah,
What the underlying thing that's still there is there's something that remains unresolved. And
mm,
people are always so much happier. This is my take on it anyway. When
yeah,
they can resolve things that they believed was never resolvable versus
yeah,
keeping their heels dug in to that line that they've drawn in the sand and waiting for the other one to be fixed as opposed to, initiating, regardless of what end of that spectrum you're on, whether you're the person who, took the injections or whether you're one who refused. There needs to be an initiation. Someone needs to initiate. And
yeah,
if we're waiting for others to do it, regardless of if we believe they were right or wrong, then you
mm,
leave yourself trapped in helplessness.
yeah.
I want to thank you, Sue, for bringing that out today because
Oh,
as
Yeah.
difficult it is to share things personal, from where I stand, everyone has something they can relate to. That's their own pain about unresolved things they carry, and that's
Yes.
our common ground. That's our unity.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm really, really happy that you've come forward, to bring something out that we need to have more conversations around.
Yeah.
In a
Thanks.
way that can open up different avenues and perspectives that people may not have considered, where they can start seeing ways towards, meeting in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you as well.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Did you have any final words before we run out of time?
No, she's given me food for thought. I do feel a little bit lighter right now. So I
Well,
will
you did
say,
say you started off nervous. Are you still feeling nervous?
no, no, not at all. That's good.
Yeah, so you can feel a change in your internal, system. Like you don't have the anxiety like before. You're a bit more relaxed, a bit more hopeful.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah,
See some choices here that you didn't see before, maybe something like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
beautiful. All right, Sue. I can't thank you enough. I really, really enjoyed you coming forward, not knowing, neither of us knew what was going to come out today.
That's right.
Just a hit and hope and see what unfolds. So
Okay.
I'm really pleased that you took that chance, and that something of values come from that.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
just if you're listening to this and you have something you'd like to get off your chest, or something that's grinding you that you haven't been able to resolve, this is what this podcast is for. It doesn't have to be about lecturing. It can be just about something really, really important, because at the end of the day, all of us are the same. We all have the same requirements for a happy, contented life. So that concludes episode 2. I look forward to introducing you to our next guest.
Belief is a toxic and dangerous attitude toward reality, I think. After all, if it's there, it doesn't require your belief. And if it's not there, why should you believe in it? It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.